Hey everyone, it's Nicole and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to tell you about the books that I've recently read. I'm calling this video books that I've recently read because I actually failed to deliver on my December wrap-up, and that is what you're going to get in this video. My December reading wrap-up and my January reading wrap-up smooshed together. So I hope you're excited. If you're not excited, fake your excitement for me, because December was a bit wild. It was a bit wild. I didn't have a lot of time to film, and the quality of my videos suffered. So without further ado, let's just jump into it because I have a lot to talk about. The first book you've heard about before, and you've seen it before on many other channels. It's very hyped. It's Rock, Paper, Scissors by Feeney. I was listening to it on audio, and for me, it worked very well. I really enjoyed it. I felt the chills, and I appreciated the plot twist, even though it wasn't that original in my opinion. As in, I was definitely thinking that it might be the case. Did it make the novel worse for me? No. I'm not complaining. I think I gave it 4 stars. The basic premise of this book is a wife and husband are in a bit of a rut. They don't really communicate with each other anymore, and they don't even really like each other anymore, and they had some issues in their marriage. Most of it is told through past letters. There's a big mystery that is unraveling chapter after chapter. The thing that makes this novel fascinating and thrilling, though, is that you don't really know the intentions that these two characters have, and it seems like they either want to get back together and to heal their relationship, or if that doesn't work, both of them have plans to kill their partner. So this is a good premise in my opinion. At the start of the novel, they are driving to Scotland in the middle of winter because they want a few nights in an Airbnb in the middle of nowhere. Also, the creepy factor is really high because that Airbnb or hotel or something was a church at some point, and it was remade into a bed and breakfast, whatever. Of course, because it's a thriller, they get snowed in. And also, they're watched by some stranger who has some suspicious intentions. I was creeped out for a long while. I think maybe consuming it through audio is in general a bit creepier than reading it yourself with your eyes. Thing is, I really enjoyed it. I was thrilled and I liked the plot twist. So I guess it was successful for me at least. Also, while listening to this book, I was thinking how if the genre was different, this setting could have been utilized differently. For example, if this was a second chance romance, this would have been a real cozy, snowed-in romantic story. Anyway, it was just a stray thought. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars, and I will probably read more Feeney when I feel like picking up a mystery or a thriller. Then I participated in the historical romance readathon, the holiday edition, and I read quite a few books. I finally read The Care and Feeding of Waspish Widows by Olivia Waite. It's the second book in the Feminine Pursuits series. I only have 1 left, and I'm going to savor it. This one, I think I liked more than the first one. It was a bit more focused on the romance than the first one for me, and the characters were a bit more interesting in my opinion. The story follows a printer widow and a beekeeper. One of them is a grumpy, one of them is a sunshine. They're 2 middle-aged women that are sort of not expected to become anything at this point. One of them is married, her husband is gay and is at sea, and one of them is a widow, so she can do whatever the fuck she wants, which was very, very refreshing, especially for a queer historical romance. I don't usually enjoy romances with middle-aged characters, but for some reason, in historical context, it really worked for me. It was also very, very slow burn with some letter exchange, which was kind of a charming detail that I really liked. I thought that it was a very mature, very level-headed romance in a way, because these two women were accomplished in their fields. They knew what they wanted, they knew where they stood. They just missed this one thing, a romantic partner to share a life with. I love this kind of setup for them. The more I'm talking about it, the more I'm convinced that I like the second book more than the first. I need to read the third book and then rank them in my head. I wanted to try a new author that writes historicals. My options were limited to what a script carries, so I picked up Convincing Arthur by Eva March. It was also a novella, so I was like, it's gonna be easy to just read it in a day or 2 days. Did I enjoy it very much? I didn't think so. I think it was not developed enough for me. It was a second chance type of romance, but not really, because these two characters never had a relationship. It's just they had crushes on each other at different times. Arthur, one of the characters, works for a legal office, and he was invited by his oldest friend, who's also gay, to his house to have some fun. The fun implies some sexual activities. Arthur doesn't really want to get in a relationship with said friend. Arthur believes that he's immature and doesn't want to get into anything more substantial, which turns out to be not true, because the guy was obsessing over Arthur for a very, very long time and wants to build something with him, which is what he's trying to convince him of in the story. There was a lot of sex and not a lot of relationship for me. I wanted to see a bit more development, or maybe even a few flashbacks to believe that they actually have a connection. So it maybe succeeded in convincing Arthur, but it didn't succeed in convincing me. 3 stars. During the readathon, I also picked up and finished When Scot Ties the Knot by Tessa, which is the third book in the Castles Ever After series. I'm not reading Tessa in order at all. I'm just picking up books that feel vibey for me. But so far, I think Tessa cannot deliver a book that is lower than 4 stars for me. This one is about a woman who's into animals, not in the Fury type of way, but in the sciencey type of way. She has debilitating anxiety, and when she was younger and had to debut and find herself a husband, she decided that she just cannot do it. Her mental health does not allow for it. So she made up a suitor for herself and started forging letters. And she kept up the pretense for a long while until she decided that she needs to kill the imaginary suitor and wrote herself a final letter. Years pass, everyone believes that she had this Scotsman that she was in love with that was at war and died. She even mourned him and fully wore black clothing for him. But then, one day, he just appears at her doorstep. Remember when I told you that she made him up? He doesn't actually exist. Turns out her letters actually arrived because there was a guy with the same name and surname, and now he found her and wants to marry her so he would be able to get the house and land and live on it. It's hilarious. She set herself up. It's so funny. Tessa Dare comes up with the most ridiculous premises, and I love that. It was very, very good. Not 5-star good for me, but 4-star good, solid. I genuinely enjoyed these 2 characters. I love their banter. She just didn't want to get married to anyone, but she had to now because she literally dug her own hole. I love the representation of anxiety in historical romance. I loved how they were working on it and trying to deal with it, and I tried to accommodate her. I loved that the story mostly was set in the castle and we were mostly focused on them and the development of their relationship. I was so embarrassed for the protagonist, especially when the hero was bringing up things that she wrote in the letter, hoping that no one would actually see it. And those things were so personal and so vulnerable, but it was also so sweet because she told him things that she never told anyone. So now he knew her better than everyone else. I love this novel. I just love Tessa Dare. Every single time I pick her up, it's a win. I don't even know if she actually has any stinkers. If you didn't like a Tessa Dare novel before, tell me. If you have favorite Tessa Dare novels, also tell me in the comments down below, because I need to prioritize somehow. She has quite a backlist. Then I finally finished Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell, which is a sci-fi romance, or is it romantic sci-fi? Hard to tell. I think it's more sci-fi than romance, but the romance is very prominent still. It's an arranged marriage story with some pretty decent sci-fi world building. It's about two representatives of different planets. One of them is one of the mini princes of the planet, and the other one I don't think is royal in any way. They need to marry because every single planet in the line has to be aligned in their priorities and expectations and ideas about the ruling planet. One of the two guys in this new arranged marriage was married before, but his husband died, so he's now a widower. So they basically want to give him someone else. They don't really know each other, they don't have any connections to each other. But what was really refreshing is they were trying to make it work, because usually arranged marriages come with very reluctant partners, or it's hate to loves, and in this one they genuinely really tried to make it work, which was really interesting. The widower's ex-husband that died also was abusive, so he now is very tentative about future relationships and in general acts as a person that was abused before. There is a bigger plot, it's not just romance, and it has to do with someone trying to sabotage the peace in this line of planets. The two heroes, the protagonists of this book, are getting involved with it and are trying to investigate it. There were things that I really liked about this. It was engaging. I really got into it in the middle and was curious about the villains and the conflict and the plot in general. I liked the romance, it was very sweet, but I had some issues with it too. I actually put this novel on my most disappointing because it had so much potential to be a favorite and it didn't become a favorite. There are a few fanfiction tropes in this that pissed me off a little bit, because as far as I know, this novel was a fanfiction before, and you can kind of tell. It made the story read a bit more juvenile, in my opinion. One of the protagonists also was so obtuse that it got on my nerves sometimes. I just don't like stupid protagonists because it's just easy to write stories with them if they're not thinking about things, just getting into trouble all the time. But it's definitely worth the read because I've seen other people talking about it on their channels and they didn't notice what I've noticed, or it didn't bother them as much. So you might actually enjoy this. I don't want to say that it's bad. It's very enjoyable. I just saw some flaws. I was also casually listening to Hype, How Scammers, Grifters, and Con Artists Are Taking Over the Internet and Why We're Following by Gabrielle Bluestone. It's a non-fiction book, obviously, and it's about scammers and grifters, specifically on the internet. It talks about Trump administration, the misinformation on Twitter and the news. It talks about Elon Musk. It actually has a lot of stuff to say about Elon Musk that I didn't know about before. It talked about the Fire Festival and some Instagram personas that are actually scammers, such as this Callaway woman. Anyway, it just talks about all these situations where people scam their way into things and how they did it and why we believe them. It's interesting. What lacked for me a little bit in this book is the perspective of the author. She was kind of stating facts most of the time or quoting things, and I don't think she had a lot of opinions, which was weird for a non-fiction book from a journalist, because she is a journalist. Definitely worth a listen in exchange for a daily podcast, but don't expect a lot from it. I liked it, but I didn't like it too much. Then I finished The Time Slip Girl by Elizabeth Andre, which is a time travel romance about an American woman that goes on a vacation to UK, and during an excursion in an older building slips back in time and falls for the woman that lived in this building years and years before. She's trying to find her way back to her time, but she also is kind of split in her desires because now she has this girl that she is kind of into. In my opinion, not a reason to stay, because traveling back in time seems like a bit of a nightmare, especially if you maintain your knowledge of technology and things that were invented. The way you won't make me decide to stay in the past. I didn't love this book. The start was pretty dynamic, but then it just slacked and I found it really hard to focus on it. I was mostly disinterested by the middle of the book. I think I gave it 2 stars. The last book that I read in 2021 was Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert. I'm not even going to give you the synopsis. At this point, you've seen it before, you probably read it before. I'm the last one. I really liked it, not like the first book, because the first book just hit the spot for me. The second one was also enjoyable, but Danica pissed me off a lot because she is such a flake, and I think the recent experiences that I've had with dating just turned me off from flakes so much. I had an internal reaction to her. She didn't want to get into a relationship. She wanted to play with people's hearts, and I just wasn't into it. To me, telling people that it's a no strings attached relationship is kind of cruel in itself, because what you're saying is this person is not good enough for you to be in a relationship with them. That's just my perspective. She got better, especially in the relationship with Zafir. I enjoyed her because they were actually good together. They complemented each other. And obviously, Talia Hibbert never misses on the humor. Her writing style is superb. I enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. And then in January, I had a 5 after 5. Well, I started with a 4, but then I had 5 after 5, and I'm still riding the wave. I love it. The first book that I've read was Just My Type by Lucy Bexley, which is an FF vampire novella. It's hilarious. It's really funny, about a very old vampire that has very selective knowledge of humans and new technology, and a doctor named Annie that was trying to find a cure for a rare blood disease. They meet in the lab, which Arrow, the vampire, breaks into to get some blood packets. Annie bumps into her and she makes an assumption that Arrow is just one of the lab people that spilled blood all over herself. Arrow gets obsessed with Annie and follows her around, as many vampires do in a lot of different media about vampires, and it's a light-hearted, funny romance about them too. I really liked it. I don't know if there's going to be a sequel, but there is this other vampire character who's a therapist whom I really want to see in a romantic scenario, so I hope these 2 authors decide to write a sequel. So after Just My Type, I hit a jackpot and I got 3 5-stars. The first one was Summer Sounds by Mandelo. Genius stuff. Catered to my taste to the T. This book is a Southern Gothic dark academia. Can we just appreciate this word salad because it's brilliant? Summer Sounds is about a guy named Andrew that comes to the funeral of his childhood best friend Eddie. He's devastated, and he's also the receiver of all Eddie's properties and money. Eddie was very rich. He is trying to figure out what happened to him because he doesn't believe that Eddie killed himself, which is the official theory. He believes that he knew Eddie better than anyone. They were inseparable, except Eddie actually dumped him and went to the university that they wanted to attend for their master degree, I believe, to figure out the sites where they're going to live, etc., etc., and actually was sort of ignoring Andrew for a long while and telling him to not come at all because he's not ready. Something was real shady and Andrew wants to figure out what exactly. Since he inherited Eddie's house, he moves into it and meets Eddie's roommate and friends that he made during the time where they were separated. And he believes that one of those friends or people in the university, other academics, played a part in Eddie's murder. He believes it's a murder. There's another element to the story that makes it the most perfect ever. Eddie and Andrew, back in the day when they were children, got into a bit of a dark situation. I'm not going to explain what exactly happened because it's sort of a mystery that you uncover along the way. And after that situation, they started seeing revenants. So to add salt to the wound, Edwin now is seeing Eddie's revenant and is deeply upset by it, of course. He also is the one out of them that doesn't really want this power and wants to get rid of it but doesn't know how, and Eddie really wanted to embrace it. The story is so twisted and dark and atmospheric and emotional and deeply, deeply addicting. I felt so connected to Andrew. I wouldn't say that the story is very plot driven, but the journey that Andrew makes from the start of it to the end is mind-blowing. He has to tackle so many things. It's one of those books that I know is going to be my all-time favorite. The story is very queer, it's very trans also. The group of friends that Eddie made is very interesting, especially for Andrew because he didn't know this part of Eddie. He also had a very long-standing crush on Eddie. I could have definitely gone with less consuming of hard drugs and racing each other because it was a bit useless in my opinion. But I didn't really mind it that much at the end. Loved the story. I cannot wait to see what Lee Mandelo does next. Then I also read The Purse of Loving a Wallflower by Ridley. It's an FF historical romance with some fake courtship, which was so fun for me. I love a fake dating, and in a historical setting, it's fake courtship. The story has heavy found family vibes, which made it so much better. It's about this group of orphans that were adopted by Baron Wonderbean. He raised them as his own. They all are very special and have interesting talents. They're prone to shenanigans and heists and don't have the best reputation in society. In the first book, they were trying to steal a picture from the Duke, and this Duke was supposed to marry Philippa. Philippa is one of the heroines of the second book, this book. Tommy, one of the orphans, is a master of disguises. She can do any age, any gender, any class. And she met Philippa in the first book, fell head over ass in love with her, and now doesn't know what to do because she really wants to talk with her, but she's too shy. So she pretends to be the new Baron Wonderbean because her siblings are evil and want to matchmake them. They force her to do it. She pretends to be Baron Wonderbean and goes on the promenade to court Philippa as Baron Wonderbean. Philippa is a Bluestone, she's a Wallflower. The only thing that she wants to do is to drink tea with her ladies and talk about sciencey books. She is not interested in getting married, but her mother specifically really wants to marry her to someone with a title because their family is rich, but they don't have a title. She doesn't want to put her parents and the friends that she has in a bad light, in a bad situation, because reputations are important. So she goes to the balls and to the parks and talks to gentlemen. She doesn't like anyone though. She never liked a guy before until she met Baron Wonderbean, who we know is actually Tommy. Tommy keeps up the disguise for a little bit, but very early on still she tells Philippa that she's actually Tommy and she's pretending. They decide that Tommy is going to continue to pretend to be Baron Wonderbean, so Philippa's mother gets off her case a little bit. Of course, it's a romance novel, they fall in love, and now they have to figure out how to be together because Philippa wants to appease her parents still and not to lose her reputation, but Tommy doesn't want to pretend to be Baron Wonderbean her whole life. So they need to figure out something that is going to work for both of them. There's also a heist, a revenge story in the background, which was very entertaining. And I really enjoyed Tommy's family. They were lovely, delightful people. I actually got really interested in the first book after reading this one. The romance was sweet, but also had some angsty moments. I, in general, really loved it because the writing style was very lighthearted and it had tropes that I really enjoy. It was just pure fun. I gave it 5 stars. And the last book that I'm going to talk about in this video is How to Bang a Billionaire by Alexis Hall. Don't laugh. The title is ridiculous, but this book is brilliant. It's so goddamn good. I loved it. I feel like it's so genius and people probably don't even know that it's genius just by looking at the cover. It is, in my opinion, a direct reply to the 50 Shades phenomenon because the story is about a reluctant dom and a very enthusiastic sub. This is about 2 guys. It's an age gap romance. One of them is a billionaire, one of them is an English lit Oxford student, and this pesky English student named Arden is really trying to convince Caspian, the billionaire, that they need each other and that Caspian needs to let go a little bit and needs to confront why he believes being a dom is actually a sign of being abusive. It was so good. It was so good. Alexis Hall delivers. It's lighthearted, really funny writing style with an emotional depth that I don't see from all the romances that I read. I just think that it's so good and everyone needs to read it. Ignore the cover, ignore the title. I just love that they were trying to build a relationship that works for them specifically and that it busted so many myths about a BDSM relationship that 50 Shades installed in people's heads, like the general public. I love this. I don't know what the second and the third book are going to be about because it's a series, it's a trilogy. But the first book feels very complete to me, so I don't know what I'm going to get to the second and the third. I'm kind of scared to do it because I'm afraid to get disappointed. This first book was so perfect. It's a perfect package. It's going to happen at some point because I'm going to have Alexis Hall withdrawals soon, obviously. I'm going to read his new book soon, a historical romance. But after, I will need to wait for husband material, and it's a long wait till summer, so I need to read more of his backlist. This is everything that I want to talk about in this video. Hopefully there was enough variety for you to choose from. Tell me in the comments down below if you've had any 5 stars recently and tell me what it is about. Thank you for watching this video. Leave a book stack emoji. As usual, we're leaving emojis in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this and I'll see you with another video soon, but until then, bye.